What's happening, people? Welcome to the Breakaway Podcast. I'm your host, John Root, and sitting in this chair right over here, we've had some studs sit in this chair and tune in virtually. We had Michael Chandler on a few weeks ago. Now we got Cameron Haynes. Yeah. He's an endurance athlete, bow hunter, and a guy that runs way more miles than I do every single day. You're in here as we speak for America Fest. We're at the podcast studio in Phoenix, Arizona, and you're from Eugene, Oregon, yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
So I need you to give people the breakdown of each day of your life. I know you've given that a lot. Did you run before you got on the plane, or how'd that work?
This morning, no. Had to get up at, what time? 3:30. Well, the alarm didn't go off because anytime I'm going somewhere, you're always waking up looking at it. But the alarm was set for 3:30, so no running before that today. But man, it's beautiful here in Phoenix, so we'll be running this afternoon in the sun.
So each day, are you running about a marathon a day, or what's that look like now?
Yeah, when I'm getting, like if I'm working towards a race, like a 200-mile race or something like that, and definitely ramp up the mileage. Right now, I'm actually trying to put on a little more weight. I feel like muscle protects my joints. You know, I'm no spring chicken. So
you're 54, right?
54, right? Yeah. So it's I got to do things. I got to protect the body too. So I lift a lot more and run a little less this time of year. But if I'm, to answer your question, if I'm getting ready for a big, like I said, a long endurance run, I'll get up in the morning and run. Try to get in, 10 miles before work. I'll run at lunch, and then I'll run in the evening. And my goal when I'm going hard is a marathon a day. So, and I do that with 3 different runs because I still have a full-time job.
And then you lift for about an hour each day then?
Yep. Try to lift. And my buddy Eric, he's a trainer, one of the best athletic trainers in the area. He'll make sure I'm getting stretched out, and then on top of that, I'll get massage and try to just keep this thing going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny. This morning, I went running. I'm training for a marathon myself.
Really?
And it was so funny because I was like, man, I'm not feeling it today.
Yeah.
I am like,
sometimes that happens.
I'm hurting a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it comes down to just the mental aspect. But for me, like, I'm running. I got some good tunes going.
Yeah.
And all I'm thinking about is I'm sitting down with a guy that runs a marathon every single day.
Yeah.
And I'm just getting to my 7th mile. So maybe I should keep it going.
That's a good run.
And it's been great, but you kept me motivated.
Oh,
because I'm like, Cameron Haynes is here, and I'm like, all right, let's just keep going.
Yeah. I mean, I do. I mean, I've had those runs too, where a mile feels like a long run, but what I always try to keep in mind is what a blessing it is to be able to run, because I think, you can overthink things. Sometimes it's just like, hey, let's just put one foot in front of another and just grind this thing out. But when you, in retrospect, or even if you're just in the moment, you can think about how many people would love to be able to run and can't. They physically can't because there's some ailment, or they're old, or they're whatever else, and they would give anything to be what we're doing right now. And we're kind of, being negative about it. Yeah. And so it's like it takes that switch to think, God, this is such a blessing to be able to do this. And our bodies are able to, we have this goal, and our bodies are able to carry us through it. So, I mean, some runs are tough, some runs are great, but all runs are a gift, I think.
When did you start figuring out the mental aspect of being an endurance athlete? And because I know you're going hunting all the time too, so there's a sense of you have to be mentally strong all the time, mentally in tune. You got to be disciplined. So when did you actually flip that switch and realize, hey, this is how I can attack this run or this hunt with the right mentality?
Bow hunting definitely teaches you that, because it's, the animals, it's not like, I mean, if you're going against another man in something, they're human just like you, and they have the same weaknesses and different things in their head and doubts. An animal, there's nothing like that. So it's like you're never going to get a break. They're never going to weaken, really. They're always going to be in tune. That's how their only goal every day is to live, to be aware of their surroundings. So bow hunting definitely challenges just staying in the moment, regardless of what happened. You might miss a shot, you might spook an animal, you might be fatigued, but if you're not at your best, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that opportunity when it comes. So bow hunting has taught me over and over and over, I have to believe that I'm going to be able to get it done if given a sliver of a chance. And then in running is actually I mean, it's a huge mental thing, but it's actually easier because it's, I mean, I don't know what you got. What are you doing? You're doing something, you're setting this goal, you go through this pain, and at the end of it, you're going to be able to have this celebration that you accomplished this. You know, I mean, I've had people who did a marathon for the first time, or last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, my buddy did an ultra marathon for the first time. And I'm saying, you're an ultra marathoner. You did it. It's over.
Yep.
But so there's that pain you have to get through, but the achievement is something you can celebrate forever.
Yep.
So it's just keeping that in mind. And that's where like in a marathon, people, they think of the whole marathon instead of just, let's get this 1 mile, then the next mile, then the next mile. Well, you do the same thing in an ultra. You know, like I've done 240-mile ultras, and you get to 100 miles, you're not even halfway.
Yep.
And 100 miles, first time I did a 100-miler, I was like, I couldn't even walk. And I'm thinking, now I'm at 100 and not even halfway. So that
do
mental
you look
shift.
at the mileage there too? Or are you one of those guys where it's like, I've already known the course before I even jumped on, so I don't want to get reminded that I'm not even halfway?
Yeah. No, you pretty much aid station to aid station.
Yeah.
And usually those are about 20 miles apart. So you'll have to take your water and whatever calories you need in between there, sometimes 10, 20. But anyway, for a 200-mile race, you can have aid stations every mile, right? So they're spread out. And it's such a, I mean, sometimes, like I've been in a race before, I'm trying to think which one it was. Oh, Bigfoot 200 in Washington. There's this section that we'd run 130 miles. It was hot, exposed, going up the mountain. And this guy had done the race before. This is my first 200. And I said, what can we figure for the pace on this next stretch? And he's like, oh, it's brutal. He goes, 2 miles an hour. And, you know, if you're 20 miles, 10 hours, dude, 10 hours just to get to the next aid station. So you can't think about beyond that. You're breaking it down into those little sections. Well, marathon's the same, because I always think that, you know, it's like that stretch for me in a marathon, that stretch from 13 to say 20 is the hardest, because the first 13, you should be feeling pretty good, right?
Yep.
So then you get to 13 and now you're only halfway. And then I always think when I get to 20, well, I only have a 10K left. That's 6.2 miles. So, but between 13 and 20, it's kind of hard to like grasp onto things to be, you know, it's like, God, I'm not to that last 10K. I just passed halfway. So it's, you know, I just think that the key is breaking it down and breaking a long run down into segments.
I'm sure it's got to be difficult for you to have accomplishment after accomplishment, and you're doing stuff that people could even dream about. You're doing these ultra marathons, you're running about a marathon every single day. And I kind of compare you to people like a lot of people have heard of David Goggins. Yeah. And you've gotten that comparison a lot. And then what we talk about on the show is a lot of NBA, NFL, a lot of the bigger sports that are in the country. And when you think of someone like Tom Brady, where he's thinking, I got all these rings, but I don't know it's enough. Right. Like, how do you stay motivated? Because I think you have to have a mentality like Tom Brady where, hey, I could have 20 rings and that still wouldn't be enough.
Yeah. Me personally, I never think about, you know, I think about the failures more than the accomplishments. So even just talking about that one story where I just said that, you know, the guy said, well, you can figure out 2 miles an hour, that race, I hadn't even really thought about that race until right then. Because I'm always just like, well, no, I achieved that. What's the next thing? So, and I think Brady does the same thing. It's like you're not going to rest on your laurels, right? So you have to nobody's giving you a break. Nobody's saying, well, oh, you know, Tom Brady, he's got 7 Super Bowls. I could intercept this pass, but I'm not going. It's like they're trying to make him look bad. Well, it's the same thing in life. It's like nobody really cares about what you've done for the most part. It's about what you're doing and what your next goal is. And that's how I look at it is I gotta keep, and like on a hunt, the fact that I've killed bulls before with my bow doesn't mean I'm going to get a break on the next bull, you know? So it's like you let those accomplishments go. Of course it feels good. And it's like, gives you confidence. I think that's the biggest thing. Gives you confidence to chase bigger goals, but it's always the next challenge for me. It's like, what's next? Did this, cool. What's next?
I think, Kyrie, you're one of the toughest guys probably on planet Earth. And you've probably gotten that many, many times, as you should. So when I look at sports like the NFL, you watch the NFL a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
And it's the way they've changed a lot of the rules. They're protecting the passer quite a bit. Like, obviously, those are the big money guys, but roughing the passer, I feel like, is ruining the NFL.
Yeah.
Guys are not allowed to taunt anymore. So I think it's taken the emotion out of the game.
Yeah.
It's hard for me. Like, I'm just sitting here just like this ex-D2 football punter and talk about, guys not, obviously, you got tough guys out there, but I think the way they've changed the rules, you don't feel the toughness that you should feel in a sport like football. Do you feel like that's ruining the sport? And how do you look at NFL players when it comes to toughness?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they're tough. I mean, they're tough, but I agree with what you're saying. It's like, offense sells tickets.
Yep.
So I mean, I think Brady, he got his knee blown out. I can't remember how many years ago that was, but that was kind of started the protect the passer thing, because when Brady's gone, the face of the NFL in some respects is gone. So yeah, I think they've softened it up a little bit. I liked, sometimes you see these big hits and you're like, that's what gets people excited, and then there's a flag on it. Then the guy's thrown out of the game. It's like, what?
Yeah, the college football rules, I think, are ridiculous.
Yeah, they are.
And then football moves so fast.
Yeah.
Too.
I mean, how are you supposed to? So you have your head down, head up, and that angle is going to determine whether you're thrown out of the game or not, or whether it's a legal hit.
Defender, you got to hit right here. That's it.
Yeah,
and then
the defender could drop.
Yeah,
and then it's like helmet to helmet. It's like this is reactionary. This is happening. This isn't. Of course, a defender, you make money to hit hard.
Yep.
Right. So now, do you want him to hit hard or not? You know what I mean?
Everybody wants to be an Ed Reed out there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, just a headhunter.
Yeah. And
now you can even, headhunter probably gets you a flag, So it's like, I don't know. I miss that part of it. They're amazing athletes and they put on a show, and it's, it's entertainment, and everybody sitting in the cheap seats is the best coach in the world. So
the armchair quarterbacks,
But yeah, I mean, it is frustrating sometimes. I mean, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely changed. Same with the NBA and the flopping and the dramatics there. But I think toughness is. I wish you mentioned Goggins. That guy is a machine, and I remember I told the story on Rogan, but Goggins was tough the whole way through. But like, we did an ultra marathon together, and he was kind of struggling, and I was like, God dang, can't believe I'd ever see Goggins struggle. And he only struggled until it got really tough. And then he flipped a switch to another gear. And it's like, he was tough, like pretty dang tough. But then when it got miserable, he went to, the stratosphere in toughness. It's like, oh, okay, so this is what he's about. And so it's not until it gets miserable. It's just kind of, this is what we do. And then when it gets miserable, that's where you see where somebody like that stands out. So when I'm measuring the NFL guys to somebody like Goggins, it's really tough, it's really tough to measure up to somebody like him. And that's your measuring stick.
And then someone like David Goggins, his story growing up, his background is a huge part of his story and his motivation. And that's a huge part of your story then too. Like, I know you've said on multiple podcasts that, hey, I wouldn't want anyone to switch my life growing up at all. I wouldn't want them to trade it at all. So do you feel like that was really able to build you up into the man you are today?
I think so. I mean, it's, a lot of people, I'm not the only one, but, divorced parents and alcoholics on both sides. And, anytime you have that type of household, it's not going to be, I guess it's going to be dysfunctional. I didn't like my stepdad. And so there was, I have my dad on the other side, and he's like a superhero to me, even though he wasn't. But because I wasn't around him, and then people would tell me stories of him because he was a great athlete. And so, yeah, as a kid, it's like, being a kid is tough anyway. Yeah. And I remember not being happy, being picked on, wondering where I fit in, was never happy at home, not happy when I went to live with my dad. So, I don't remember a lot of being happy when I was a kid, but then also, that is, that's why I am the way I am. So it's like, without that, what would I be? It's like, I'm pretty thankful for it, actually. At the time it sucked.
Yep.
But now I'm like, well, no, it gave me perspective on, what struggle and what happiness truly is and what it's worth. And so that's just the way it goes. And then of course it gave me perspective for my own kids, and I didn't want them to feel like I felt.
Yep.
So that's helped.
Do you feel like when you actually opened up about your story growing up, you were really able to connect with your audience? Because you have a massive audience. You have a lot of people that follow you across all platforms. You've been on Joe Rogan's podcast. People are putting you and Goggins in the same bucket together. You're one of the best all-around athletes in the world, really. So when you opened up about your story, do you feel like you were able to connect with the audience a lot more, and you weren't just the Cameron Haynes endurance athlete, Bowhunter?
Yeah, well, I mean that's really the key, because I always loved writing growing up, and so that was always my goal, to be a hunting writer. And when people would read my writing and they would be like, man, this guy's kind of just like me, a regular job, same, working hard for these opportunities, driving all the way across the state in the middle of the night just to hunt for a weekend. And that's what because a lot of people say, well, I could do that too if I had these things, right? Well, they're seeing like, I don't have anything. I have just what they have. Yeah. So it kind of built my following, because people could identify with me. Well, just like my story, a lot of people struggle. You on social media and different things, everybody paints this perfect picture, and it's like people look at it and go, God, that person has a perfect life.
Yeah, you're going to post your best stuff on social media.
Highlights,
that's what it is.
Right? That's what they say, the highlights. So I was, my life hasn't been all highlights. And I've shared that, and yeah, it just makes that connection a little stronger, because people just want to know that, you're not, your life, they feel, I think they feel like, I don't know if they can't make it because their life isn't like what they perceive other people's to be. So they say, well, I got too much to overcome. But when they see, there's people, like maybe like me, who has overcome all this and then achieved these goals, that gives them confidence to do it too. So it has helped, because it's just like I'm just like anybody else, and it's a connection.
Well, we talk about a Turning Point USA. It's like, be a victor, not a victim. And I feel like that's
true.
what people have to hear when they hear your story.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's like, Cameron's not over here like, oh, woe is me. Like, I just had this really tough upbringing, so feel bad for me. It's like, no, I want to use this to motivate people.
Yeah.
And I want you to feel like, I don't know, there's so many times where, especially when we're dealing with social justice stuff in sports, there's so many athletes that can bring up personal experiences, and we can talk about that. They can try to empathize with that. And then a lot of people try to use that as a crutch, where it's like, well, that's the reason I'm not succeeding now. That's the reason I'm not getting opportunities. But I think for people like you, it's like these are maybe just little speed bumps.
Yeah.
That's what it is. This isn't a full stop sign for you. So figure out how to be a victor instead of a victim.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's like, I still have a 9-to-5 job right now. I look at, because I've always said, well, bow hunting is my passion, not my job, right? But another reason I like the 9-to-5, because I love the people I work with, and those are just people grinding it out every day, construction guys, engineers, people like that, and it's just, they show up to work, they do their job, and there's something special about that, So it's like, you don't have to be. I think people, like I said, they compare themselves to these highlights. It's not that sometimes. It's like you keep showing up and keep doing your job and keep doing what's expected. If you keep that up every day, great things are going to happen eventually, right? It's a long game. It's not people want immediate results, and it's not always that. So that's always been, for me, I've been bow hunting now for 30-some years. Well, for, half of that, nobody really cared what I was doing, right? So now it's just, after all that sacrifice and is doing what I love, but still, when you're a writer and you want opportunity, it's, you're grinding, you're like, why am I doing this? Does anybody even care? I'd sell an article for $25 or for free. And then now all of a sudden people see it and they'd be, I kind of make fun of it. I'm like, well, people say must be nice to whatever, like my gym or my hunts or whatever. Nobody's ever saying must be nice early, but the key is just sticking with it, and people, I think they get frustrated. They're not getting the results they want. But if they just stuck with it, great things can happen.
Man, you got to stick with it when you're hunting too.
Oh, yeah.
I know when you talk to Joe Rogan, like you can connect with him with hunting because he's gone hunting a lot. I went on my first hunt last year. It was my birthday weekend. Were you? I was just in northern Arizona.
Oh, okay.
Here, it's just south of Prescott.
Okay.
And then south of Flag.
For deer?
And it was for deer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my buddies had an elk hunt that I wanted to go on this year, but because of some work we had here at Turning Point, I wasn't able to go.
Oh.
But you have to have so much patience and endurance for that, especially, I think, whether our listeners know or not, people might have gone out there, shot guns a little bit. You shot a rifle, or you can shoot a deer or whatever other animal from about like 400 yards away or something like that. But when you got a bow, not only do you have to be a beast, you got to be strong. Yeah. You got to get pretty damn close to this animal, and you got to worry about, like, is this animal going to smell me? I got to have camouflage. I got to be mentally and physically strong and steady. Yeah. And like, tell us a little bit more about that, like how you were able to build that up, and what's next? Because you've hunted grizzly bears, and I've seen The Revenant. I'd be terrified. I'd be scared.
I love moments like that. To me now, after I've bow hunted for so long, I love the dangerous game type. I like that element of it with grizzlies, or in Africa with Cape buffalo or brown bear. To me, it's like, it just makes sure that I'm even more in the moment, more aware. And that's like, I think, I can't remember, maybe it's 300, but they said, like a heightened sense of being or awareness or so. So I definitely feel that. With hunting, bow hunting, like you talked about, man, it's almost like nonstop yoga, because you're so engaged and every step is so critical. So every step is measured. Every step, you can't step too hard. You can't step too light. You're in control, and it's like your body is tense the whole time. You're holding that bow up, and like, especially when you're getting close to an animal. So it can be exhausting to do that all day. And I've been on hunts where I had an arrow knocked all day, and it's like every step, I don't know when I'm going to get that opportunity. So it's like slowly, you roll your foot down on the ground, don't break a branch, don't kick a rock. And if you do, then you have to stay there, because rocks fall, branches break all the time. So an animal, they'd be like, I heard something, but unless it's a consistent sound coming from that same area, they'll be fine with it. But it'll take a while. So you do something, you screw up, you kick a rock or break a branch, then you're standing there and you're letting the woods calm back down, just so you don't have that area of consistent noise, because that's what catches the animal's attention. So anyway, point is, it's like, if you're that measured for hours, it's exhausting. And then, so you could be exhausted. And then with a bow hunter, for me, the sunlight is the enemy. I want to stay in the shadows all the time. So the shadow side of the brush, if you're in the sun and you're always in the shadows, you're measuring every step, like I said, you're super aware. The wind has to be in your face. Those animals, they don't have to see you. They don't have to hear you. If they smell you, they're gone. So you're always checking the wind, and you're always coming in on the downwind side of that animal. So with all those factors weighing in, it's not easy. And then to get into the bow range, and then after all that, so now you've done all that, making a accurate fatal shot with, you get one arrow, pull back your bow, release that arrow, making a perfect shot to kill an animal that's only goal is to survive. Deer weathers a lot out there between lions and coyotes and things trying to kill it. Sleeping out in the desert every day makes you pretty dang tough. So, if you can imagine, if you try to sleep out in the desert one night, how miserable you'd be. Well, every single day. So how tough are they? And then you're trying to kill that thing that's that tough, that aware, that its only goal is to survive with an arrow. It's a lot to overcome. That's why success is so low.
And then you need to kill the animal too, like you were saying, where it needs to be a perfect shot, because you want to be as humane as humanly possible with this. So like, obviously you've received a lot of attacks over the year for your hunting. A lot of people have tried to say, like, Under Armour, why are you associating with this guy? But the way you go about it is humane. And I think a lot of people forget that with hunting, where it's like, hey, this is a challenge to be a bow hunter, and I'm going to do it in a way where I'm going to eat this meat too, and I'm going to do it in a humane way. But you don't want to miss in a way where it's like it just injures the animal, and then they're just suffering, and it's inhumane.
Yeah, that's the worst part for me is if an animal suffers. And I had a couple, I killed, I think 10 animals this year. And I had a couple where it's, to kill an animal, you want your arrow to go through both lungs. If your arrow goes through both lungs, that's what's considered a perfect shot. Mm-hmm. The animal, many times, if it's a bull elk, they get jabbed all the time with antlers. So they might not even know an arrow. They might not even realize what happened. I've seen them not even react, basically. And then all of a sudden their blood pressure drops because they're losing this blood because the arrow just went through their chest. And they essentially pass out and die. Mm-hmm. That's what you want. They don't really know. It's not like a gun going off where there's a big report of the rifle and a bullet will cause a lot of damage, break bones, different things like that. An arrow can just slice through. Animal might not know. There's no sound. There's nothing to alarm them, and then they're dead. Mm-hmm. That's to me, that's my goal, to be a merciful bow hunter and give that animal the death I think it deserves, which is a painless one. The world isn't always perfect. The wild isn't always painless. Their death, if it wasn't from a hunter, is usually pretty miserable. They're dying from a predator or from starving or, different things. They injured themselves out there. But I had this bull I killed actually in Arizona this year. I hit a little, you want a broadside, I hit a little is 1/4 which means it's kind of facing me a little bit, not perfectly broadside. Broadside is sideways to you. So, and I went in behind the shoulder and it caught the near lung, so his right lung, and then it came, instead of getting that other lung on the other side, it went angled back and got his liver. Well, that's still a fatal hit, but it's not as perfect as a double lung. So it took a little while for that animal, for a one lung liver to die. That was, to me, that's really hard to think about that. I don't want to think about the animal suffering. And I didn't the circumstances, I did the best I could. And, bow hunting is not perfect, but I have a really hard time, when I think about an animal might suffer. I don't know. I don't really like the death part of what it is a big part of what I do. I don't enjoy actually killing the animal. I want the meat. I'm a hunter, and that's what we do, and that's part of it. But it doesn't mean that I enjoy that part of it. So when I think about that, I was elongated a little bit because I didn't hit both lungs. I don't enjoy that. It's hard to deal with.
But I'm sure a lot of people try to dumb it down and we're like, oh, Cameron Haynes, he's just out there, loves killing animals, and he loves severing the head and then just, carrying it like an absolute badass. And that's all he wants. He's just some trophy hunter.
Right.
And you fought back against a lot of that. And even talking about it right here, where it's like, no, I don't just go out here to kill animals.
No.
Like, this is humane. This is a part of what I do. And we eat the meat. And I think a lot of people are way too coddled, especially in America. A lot of people just don't know guns. A lot of people that don't know this sport whatsoever. That's why it's fascinating for me to always chat about this stuff more, because everyone knows the mainstream sports in America. But when it comes to this, like, here's the discipline. Here's my mindset behind this. And this is where there's actually a respect for both animal and hunter, because everyone thinks about the biggest rivalries. They think about that mano-a-mano, where it's LeBron James going at someone one-on-one with the clock coming down. It's like, this is what it's like hunting here. It's like, hey, this is my foe right here, but there's also a respect factor behind that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a challenge hunters always face, is, trying to justify basically our existence, because people can go to McDonald's or to wherever and buy a hamburger. They're not thinking at all about where this meat came from. Well, that meat that they're eating,
it's really meat.
Well, what is it? The chicken McNuggets or anything like that. But they don't think at all about the life. They're still killing animals. They're just they're trading money for somebody else to do it for them. So hunters, I think, deserve an immense amount of respect. Where I grew up is a small logging community, small town, and hunters were looked at as, they were respected. They were looked up to. Like, oh man, this guy, Reese Farkas, this guy, he kills a lot of big bucks. He's a stud. So that's like, you put these people up. And in the regular world, it's like, now all of a sudden we have to justify our existence. Why are you out there murdering animals? Well, it's like, well, you are too. We're just doing it ourselves. I'm I take pride in being a hunter, and I provide for my family, and I do my killing. I'm not writing a check paying for somebody else to do killing for me. So it's just that whole battle. And it's like, I think hunters deserve respect because they've taken that ownership over being the provider themselves. And it's not just out there just killing with no regard for the animal. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of meaning. It's that journey of a hunter is, a lot of layers to it. Mm-hmm. And people don't realize that because they don't have that same connection with killing an animal or what their existence means that animals are dying. All the way down to where your house was. There's animals displaced for that. Or, even if you're a vegan and you're just eating wheat bread, wheat fields are, if you go and you see where crops have been harvested, there's dead animals everywhere. Yeah. That's why there's, buzzards circling the fields after a harvest because all those dead animals are there. And that was to make your wheat bread. So if you're, life eats life, it's kind of a cliche, but that's all part of it. Our journey as a human here is causing death. Mm-hmm. It's just the way it goes. Yeah. So are you going to take ownership over it or are you going to ignore it? Hunters take ownership. And it doesn't mean it's easy. Death is always hard, but it's part of living.
Who do you think is one of the biggest killers? You always hear people when it comes to like the NBA, and it's like the Black Mamba, Kobe Bryant. Yeah. He was a killer.
Yeah, definitely.
And then Steph Curry, when he's got the ball at the end of the game, he's a killer out there. Tom Brady. So when it comes to like some of those bigger sports, and then Tiger was one of those too. Yeah, where it's like, man, he got that red polo on a Sunday. That guy's a killer.
Yeah, I never cared at all about golf until Tiger. I've never even played golf. I don't think.
And as we're talking right now, the PNC Championship, he's playing with his son.
Yeah.
So he finally made his way back. It's amazing to see it.
How's he been doing? Have they, in that with his son, I don't know how they're doing. Are they trading shots or are they?
I think it's like a scramble tournament.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is he making good shots? How's he playing?
I think he's been playing fine. A little bit that I've watched, and I think a lot of people just love watching Charlie Woods.
Yeah.
Because it's basically just a mini Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're watching the same.
Huh?
He's incredible.
Really?
Charlie had this shot. I think it was yesterday. So we're talking on a Saturday. So it was Friday. Mm-hmm. He had this shot that was like a foot away from an eagle.
Really?
Just
how old is he?
How old is Charlie? I'm actually might need some help from the guys back there to find out how old Charlie Woods is. But
he's a little guy.
He's a small dude, and he's just like
Tiger back when he was a kid. What was he on the Tonight Show or something?
Yep.
Yeah. Amazing. So it's like you see these guys. What's that?
He's 12 years old.
Oh, 12.
Yeah.
You see these athletes, and they, I think it is part of Steph Curry. His dad.
Another Under Armour boy.
Right, Under Armour, yeah. But so these kids that grow up in that world, that level of expectation and that seeing what it takes to be that committed and dedicated to something, then it makes sense that they are following in their father's footsteps. Of course, then you have to have the athletic ability too, but a lot of times it's the dedication to training. And then combined with that makes you a legend. That's where you get a Steph Curry or I guess Tiger's son.
Yeah, Tiger's son. Charlie. And then did you have who was your sports role model growing up? Because a lot of people looked at MJ. I know I love watching him.
Probably him
in the 90s.
And Tyson was big back then. Tyson, when Tyson fought back, I don't know, when I was in my 20s. That was like the whole world stopped, basically. Yep. Everybody's watching. Did you watch the Tyson fight? Of course, everybody watched it. So Tyson was big. MJ, of course. MJ has to be the biggest killer of all time, though, when you talk about killers in sports. Mm-hmm. He would just, take over. And I liked how he was relentless, and he wanted to punish people.
Yep.
I love that. I love that part of it.
And it's such a bummer to me. I think about it all the time, where his flu game is one of the greatest moments in sports history.
Yeah.
And now because of everything that's going down, you have, the Bulls, they had 10 guys in COVID protocol, so they couldn't even play a game. And then now as we speak, the NFL's had to reschedule like half a dozen games.
Yeah.
And then now they got games on like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, and they're switching all this stuff around. And that's what kind of bumps me out, thinking because that is toughness.
Yeah.
And unfortunately now, because of all these protocols, I don't think we're ever going to see a flu game ever again.
No. I don't know. It's that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, this I don't even know what to say about COVID. But yeah, because Jordan couldn't have played because he was showing symptoms. You know, right? So it's like that would have happened, which is crazy to think. But it's definitely a different time. Different. I don't know. Definitely don't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's going the right direction.
Well, how do you think we get sports back to being, tough and great again, really? Because there's this sense of, have all these COVID protocols, and I think we could be in the same boat of just like, we want people to be safe. We want people to be healthy.
Yeah.
But there's this sense of the way, quarterbacks are coddled, like we talked about earlier. You got all these protocols, and there's this sense of, how do you show toughness? Obviously, these guys are big products.
Yeah.
And you gotta protect your product. There's millions of dollars invested in this, but
I think it's driven people towards things like UFC, because you see like the NFL, they're all trying to be also like that social justice. You see the commercials for who knows what, but I'm like, I don't need this. I just want to watch football.
Yep.
I don't want to, have this shoved down my throat. So
before you start watching this game, look yourself in the mirror and check that privilege, right?
Yeah.
And once you check that, all right, you can come back.
And then I think for a while there, weren't they playing the Black National Anthem or something?
Yeah.
too?
So they did that, I think the first week, maybe the first couple weeks. I know for sure they played it the opening weekend of the NFL, and that they got lambasted for that, as they should. Because I think there's even a lot of players that were saying, no, like I'm a proud American.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here. I'm going to stand for the anthem as well because I care about our military. I care about every single American. I'm going to show some respect here, and I don't need some sort of virtue signaling to show that you really care and to try to tell me that this is the worst race relations we've had since the 60s or ever. It's all garbage, and it's doing nothing but dividing us.
I know. And you mentioned that. I've been watching this documentary, I think, on this old one.
Not the Kaepernick documentary, right?
No. But, you talk about race relations, but on the Kennedys, so back in the 60s. And I was watching that, and I wasn't, I was barely born, late 60s, but I was watching what they were going through, and I'm like, and they're trying to say it's worse now? Oh my God, it was crazy back then. So yeah, there's still struggles, of course. I mean, whatever. We can always get better, but you can't say it's the worst it's ever been. Because I was watching the March in Selma, and all sorts of the KKK actually having things, organized events, and it's like
legit racist group. Right there. Yeah,
right there, and it's like they make it. I mean, I don't want to say who they is, but it's the narrative is it's worse now than it's ever been. That's not true. But yeah, people, when they watch sports, they want to be proud to be an American. They want to have the national anthem. They want to watch football. They don't want to watch all this stuff. So as I was saying, I think it's pushed people from that who are tired of that kind of stuff to like UFC, where you got somebody like Dana White who he's not going to coddle anybody, and he's not, doing, trying to be politically correct. He's saying exactly what he thinks. They had all their events, hardly missed a beat with COVID. It's like still held them. And so it's pushed people to things like that. And you talked about Chandler being here. Those guys are the ultimate, gladiators, out there. And so I think you look at, I don't know how soft, say, the NBA might be getting compared to especially the 90s, like when Jordan was there. And then it makes the UFC that much more appealing, the fighters. And so I don't know. That's why UFC is blowing up, I think.
Well, there's people like, we talk about LeBron James all the time. I feel like conservatives are always going to bring him up. And I always say that's one of the greatest athletes we will ever see in our lifetimes. But this guy, he's going to go out here and cry and flop and then try to tell people that they're taking lemon heads.
Yeah.
And then they had those where things like that where it's like, Oh, you're gonna act like the tough guy here?
Yeah.
That's who you are? Here's
know.
about a couple dozen videos of you flopping around.
Or
tell us what toughness is, LeBron, please.
Or rolling around on the floor because who knows, ankle, knee, whatever. And then he's back playing in, a couple more minutes. And it's like, you just act like you got shot out there in the court and now you're fine. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I love athletes and I love watching people who are the very best in the world at what they do. I mean, how do you not respect that? But man, when when you see like what you're talking about, the flopping and everything else, and then he loves to chime in politically too, which I don't know. Maybe it's just because it's not my politics, so it drives me even more crazy. Maybe there's people on the other side who'd be like, "Oh yeah, LeBron, thanks for speaking up." But to me, I'm like, oh God, yeah, like with the Rittenhouse stuff and the lemon heads, that was super irritating because he doesn't know what that kid went through, how it felt, or what he had to deal with emotionally, and he's
going through PTSD,
right? I mean. Had to for his life, protecting his life, had to kill a man, couple men, and it's like you're making fun of that. This is a kid, an 18-year-old kid. I think
17,
maybe he was 17 at the time. Yeah, so it's like you're a grown man making fun of somebody who just went through probably one of the most horrific things you can go through. It's just tough to respect.
And that's where I feel you can have a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
But someone like him, I know we just had Enes Kanter Freedom on. Fantastic conversation. Someone that is actually displaying true courage. Because I think true courage is being willing to speak the truth and standing up for something while losing something.
Yeah.
LeBron James doesn't lose anything. I don't think LeBron James is an idiot. I really don't. There's a lot of people that would just go straight to that. Oh, he's just dumb. I feel like he is calculated. He's been a good businessman. But when it comes to politics, you can have a difference of opinion, but let's talk about it.
Yeah.
There's a reason why when that LA cop said, hey, all the stuff you had to say in the NBA bubble about when black people leave their homes or being hunted.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about Daryl Morey, the GM of the Houston Rockets, you're telling him he's uneducated about China.
Right.
And then every time LeBron has a book, have you seen those photos where it's usually in the first few pages of the book? And they ask him, what have you been reading? He has no idea.
No, it's an act.
What it is. But at least sit down.
Yeah.
And then Enes Kanter Freedom's asked him to sit down too. But he hasn't done a sit down since the decision. That's the thing where have a difference of opinion, but the way we come together and bring sports back to being unifying is if we're going to give athletes these platforms and you're going to say something that is maybe going to rub some people the wrong way, clarify those comments.
Yeah.
Actually have journalists do their job and ask that. But, journalists are terrified. LeBron's getting coddled.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason we don't make a way forward because there's no civil discourse at all. It's just, hey, here's my platform. Here's what I think. Don't ask questions. I'm going to be like President Joe Biden, taking no questions and then move forward.
No, that's why, discussions like podcasts are so important to me. Like, so LeBron kind of gets by on sound bites. He'll say these things. He won't, if he would sit down and have a discussion, like you said, but that our society today, it's like even Joe Biden running away. It's like, do people want her to sit down and talk? Let's peel back the layers to this or peel back the onion a little bit, get down to the center of what's going on. No, they'll just do a sound bite and be done with it. It's like, well, how do you learn anything? How do you know exactly what's going on or how to move forward? You don't. It's just a sound bite that's going to be a headline that's going to create more division, basically.
And I was talking to a few people here while we're getting ready for America Fest. While we're recording this, we're just about to launch America Fest. I can't wait for that too. And I know we're going to sit down. We're going to have a good little conversation with Michael Chandler and Steve Weatherford. But a lot of people have asked with LeBron, I'm just like, well, why do you think he does the things he does? Why do you think these athletes just speak out and then they don't take questions? Journalists don't do their job. And I said, I'm most confused about because he can control the narrative if he really wanted to.
Yeah.
He can make a huge difference for all these younger athletes that are just coming up in the NBA or coming up in any other professional sports league. But it seems like, this is also me. I've never had a conversation with the guy. I don't know him, like who he is as a person, but maybe that's on him. Yeah. I think he could really open up a lot of discussion and make a huge difference instead of just having a few inflammatory comments and then just moving on. I think that's with Colin Kaepernick too. With did you see the Michelle Tafoya situation that happened on The View? So she is on Sunday Night Football, or at least used to be.
Yeah.
She's on the sidelines there, has been with NBC for a long time. I think she does a fantastic job, but she jumped on The View and they were asking her about the Colin Kaepernick situation. Obviously she's going to sit in the conservative seat. Everyone's always got questions about that. And she said, no, I don't think he lost everything. I actually think he gained a lot. He's a leader of a movement. Now, he's making millions of dollars. Yeah. And she was saying like, hey, if we're actually going to have this discussion, you ladies over here, you don't know football. Yeah. I've been in football.
Right.
You can have maybe some social justice idea behind this, but here's why he was no longer a starting quarterback.
Yeah.
This is from a football standpoint why he didn't get a job. Yeah. But it seems like people just don't want to have those discussions.
He wasn't good enough.
Blaine Gabbert took his job.
Yeah, I mean, if he was good enough, he'd be playing. It doesn't matter what he's standing for or what his message is.
Or what he's kneeling for.
Or kneeling for, exactly. It's like, is there talent there? Hey, well, they bypass a lot of, any professional league bypasses a lot of whatever distractions if the talent's there.
Yeah.
And it's like, he just wasn't good enough. What are you going to do? I mean, so he's making excuses now, still acting like he can, I don't know about recently, but not that long ago in the past, is acting like he could still play and still wanted a chance. It's like, dude, you're not good enough. Just let it go.
And then he got a lot of opportunities too. So that's something Michelle Tafoya brought up, was just like, no. Like, let me break this down. So he had a tryout. I know the Atlanta Falcons were one that offered a tryout to him too. And he had something set up a few years ago.
Didn't show up or what?
So he changed the venue last minute.
Oh.
And then played victim.
Yeah.
That's it. So when you have all these talking heads on The View, and then you actually have a legit football expert
person,
analyst, where it's like, okay, no. Like he had his opportunities,
right? But
he was starting to realize that, oh, maybe I can continue to make more money with this. I got my Nike deal. I now got this Netflix special where I'm going to make people forget that sports is the greatest meritocracy. Yeah. I love talking to people about that, where the best person gets the job. I know I was talking to Jack Posobiec about this. Yeah. I'm like, when's the last time you saw a white starting quarterback or cornerback in the NFL? We just had our first one in the past 2 decades on the Washington football team. That
really?
And that's just because white dudes just aren't good at covering receivers there on the quarter.
Not fast enough.
They're not. So it's the best person gets the job. And that's what I love about sports. And I think that's what we should get back to. It's like, it doesn't matter what you look like. I don't care where you came from. Right. I don't care what you vote, how you voted. Like, can you get the job done? Can you win me a championship?
Yeah.
That's it.
Can you win or not? That's all. That's what it should be. And it's like all these distractions are thrown out there, and it's like, no, let's just get down to, can you cover this guy one-on-one?
Yeah.
You can't, then you're not getting the job.
Exactly.
So, did you watch the Colin Kaepernick documentary?
I ended up watching that episode when he was talking about the NFL Combine and comparing.
Was it multiple episodes?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah. How was it? I didn't watch any of it.
Oh, it was tough. It's because it's one of those where I'm in a position talking about sports all the time. And
that's what I figured. You probably had to watch it or should.
And for me, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to watch this.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get through. It's like me too. Like I tried watching Space Jam 2. I'll be completely honest. I fell asleep. It was tough.
Yeah.
Because I want to have a legit take on this and not be like, oh, I saw this soundbite.
Yeah.
So, and then I'm going to go off of that. I feel like that's where I have a little bit of a gripe with, conservative news outlets when they talk about sports.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, you just saw this. Like, maybe watch the whole interview on The View. So I watched that as well. So it's like I watched the Colin Kaepernick. I watched that specific episode, and that's what I think we need to do. And it was tough because I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
this is all of a sudden a guy that's just crying foul.
Yeah,
and Michelle Tafoya said it on The View too, where hey, these guys get invited.
Yeah,
you get invited to be a part of this special football fraternity where you can become a millionaire in a few weeks.
A slave?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And he had the whole comparison where, he just like those dramatic shots where I'm looking into the camera and he's got the big afro and everything, just looking at you, just like, so this is why you should feel bad for me. And every black person that gets invited to the NFL Combine. And that's why I'm glad that people are saying like,
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like this has no truth in it whatsoever. And this is just aimed at dividing us because it's not only black people that get invited to the NFL Combine.
No. And it is a measure. They are taking the stats. It's how fast can you do this? It's how high can you jump? But color has nothing to do with it. I mean, if there was a white guy there who had the fastest shuttle run and the highest vertical and the fastest 40, he would be that corner, right? Be the corner you're talking about, that there's never a white guy out there. But he's not. The numbers aren't there. So, but you can't make that seem like it's just one way. And it's just like, like the old slave trade. It's like, no, this is just, we're measuring athletic ability, and this is how we're doing it, and may the best man win.
I think if he really wants to talk about, owners or leagues or higher powers just taking control of athletes' bodies, maybe you should listen to someone like Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah.
Maybe you should listen to someone like Kyrie Irving, because when you have a documentary and you're trying to tell people like they poke and they prod and then they give you $1 million later.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man. Like we know where this goes, but that's why I'm interested to hear what you'd have to say about Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
Because I think that's somebody that's saying, hey, I don't want the league or my team or the city of New York to just poke and prod and tell me what to do with my body. And I think we were talking before the show, Kyrie's a weird guy.
Yeah.
Like he thinks the earth is flat. He's got like this sage vape that he throws out on the court before games.
Does he?
But yeah, he is an interesting cat.
Yeah.
But he is held the line.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we can appreciate about athletes like Kyrie, that says, I don't care about the millions of dollars I'm losing by sitting out these games. He lost a lot of battles, but now we just heard that the Brooklyn Nets are going to bring him back, and he's won the war. And that's where sports are meritocracy.
Yeah.
The Nets, I really think, realized we can't really compete for a championship, and we definitely can't win a championship without our point guard. We need Kyrie.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what it's going to take, just as American people, is, being brave like Kyrie. He gave up, I think I read $6 or $7 million so far. I can't remember what it was, in fines or missed games. But he stood up for what he believed in. And it's so easy right now. I mean, even, you go through the airport flying here, and it's like, these nonstop reminders to wear your mask and 6 feet apart and all this nonsense. And it's like, but everybody does it, right? Because it's like, it's easy to justify, well, I have to do this because of my job, or I have to do this because of work. Well, here's a guy who that was his job, that was his work, who's giving up millions of dollars because he's standing up for something he believes in. Yeah. So it's going to take all of us standing up for what we truly believe in, the freedoms that make America America, and why this is the greatest country in the world. And to be free, you have to make decisions. And he's making a decision. He's not going to be controlled. And I definitely respect that. He's definitely, as you say, he's interesting. Yeah. Does some interesting things, says some interesting things. Yeah. But I respect the way he stood up for what he believed in.
Because he's one of those guys, too, where just like having Enes Kanter Freedom on, Enes Kanter Freedom and us, like, we aren't going to agree on the same stuff politically.
Right.
Or we aren't going to agree with things socially at all. But hey, there's these specific instances where we can bridge the gap.
Yeah.
Where we can say, hey, this guy's not selfish. Yeah. But that's easily what talking heads like Stephen A. Smith on ESPN are trying to say, like, oh, well, if you're just not going to comply, trade the guy. He's not worth it. And they try to make Aaron Rodgers out to be the worst of the worst.
They did.
They tried to attack Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And then when you have someone like Dana White going back to that, Dana said, I took Joe Rogan's advice
Dr.
for this.
Rogan.
Yeah, I think he should probably take over Dr. Fauci's job. That's at least my vote.
Yeah. Well, I did listen to Dana. So Dana did do, like with Joe, I think like the monoclonal antibodies, the ivermectin, that whole thing. And what Dana said is, like, I think in 2 days he was back to feeling 100%. He lost his sense of taste and smell. And then his whole family, but he talked about from his daughter, I think she's a teenager, to his mom, which is 80 or 90. They did all the same, they all had it, all did the same protocol, and all recovered. He said if he would have went to the doctor, if they would have said, go home and 14-day quarantine. Yeah. And if you don't die, good job. If you do get more sick, then come in the hospital and, we'll wait till you die, essentially. But they never treat anything.
Yep.
I don't know. So by being proactive and like doing what Joe did and has had many of his friends do and recover from it and beat it, it's like then all of a sudden and like Aaron Rodgers was talking with Joe and he did the same thing. So he sat out the 10 days from the NFL protocol, came back, actually I thought played really good in his next game back. And it's just like, that's not talked about. They don't want that. They don't want that getting the shine, but they make Joe out to be some crazy right wing guy and not listening to the science. And it's like, man, I don't know. It seems pretty effective. His treatment has worked many times now.
And it's not just Aaron Rodgers and Dana White taking his advice. He's got millions of people that listen to him.
Yeah.
So I guarantee you there's at least tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people that have taken his advice. And that's why I think it's similar to with you. You have the way you use your platform, you're telling people like there's no like one way to go about stuff. You got to fail. You got to figure out your own process. And then this is how you can find your success. And if you're going to, I think for me, comparison can be a good thing if it turns you into the best of yourself.
Right.
If you're trying to be somebody you're not, that's when I think comparison can be bad. But with Joe, he's like, hey, there's not just one way to go about this, to treat this. There's not one way to have a conversation about this. So Aaron Rodgers, Dana White, here's how you go about it. Here's how you speak on it. And here's how you stand firm and hold the line in this, because you've taken hits. People have tried to cancel you. They try to cancel these guys.
Yeah,
but for you, it's like you have that solid foundation. I know what my values are. I know what the truth is. I've done my research. And
stick to it.
Yeah, that's what it is. I feel like there's not enough people that do that right now.
Well, I mean, it's a challenge. It's pretty. They make it pretty easy to go with the flow, not cause any waves. Just kind of do what you're told. They make it easy to do that. But pretty soon, you're like, wait a second. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do what I believe in the manner in which I believe I should. And so when you do that, there's going to be some detractors. There's going to be some negative that comes with it, but I don't know. I know you sleep better at night doing what you believe.
Well, and it's uncomfortable. Yeah, too. I think there's a sense of with you, like I'm sure it's wildly uncomfortable getting up in the morning and be like, all right, well, I've done this hundreds or even thousands of times.
Yeah, but
it's not like every single morning. Just like you said, you have your failures. You have times where that just 1 mile feels like the worst.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. And there's too many people now, they want to have this little bit of comfort right now, but don't realize that it's going to make them wildly uncomfortable for years
down
and
the
years
road.
and years. And then even just for their kids in the next generations.
Yeah. No, it's and also I get a lot of, so if I just go within myself and I'm out there like how miserable I am, it's you just got to look at it in the bigger picture, like I talked about at the beginning. But also, it's like I get these messages from people who have, because of following me, they've decided they're going to run in the mornings before work, or they're going to run at lunch, or they're going to make these positive changes, and then it impacts their entire life. I mean, I've got just this week many messages. I remember one specific from this wife, and her husband had these goals in the military, and he had all these challenges he had to overcome. Well, then he started, I think, heard me on Joe Rogan, then started making these positive changes in his life. And now she says in faith, family, in confidence and all these things, he's like a completely different man. Mm-hmm. And she says she couldn't tell me how thankful she was. So then, and I'm thinking about, well, I didn't really want to get up this morning and go through be uncomfortable for maybe a little while, like half hour. And then, normally when you go on a run in the morning, it might suck for a half hour, right? Mm-hmm. But you feel better all day, because you put in the work that morning.
I feel real good right now. I'll tell you that for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's like, you overcome a little bit of discomfort, but what's it going to mean in the big scheme of things, mm-hmm. to over years, it might impact, like that woman and her husband, or even that day you're going to feel better. So it's like, just got to push through and, just look at, instead of getting so wrapped up in it's not fun right this second, it all pays off.
Well, it goes along with your motto then, keep hammering.
Definitely.
That's like, when did that come up? And because I feel like I was thinking about that when I was running this morning. There's always like, I think everyone has their own little like mental
Mantra.
pep talk that they have.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you brought up earlier, there's like, all right, there's people that like, wish they could run and wish they could struggle through this year. They wish that their Achilles heel is kind of just feeling a little crappy right now, or they're a little cold. Like they wish they could go through this, or there's this, I know when I ran my first half marathon last year.
Okay.
And I trained for a week.
Oh, nice.
It was right before I was leaving for Cancun. And I was like, I just want to do something crazy.
You gotta get shredded. You gotta get shredded before Cancun.
Man, I gotta look good in these pics out in Cancun. And I was doing a lot of hiking, and I just like a few weeks before I did like a rim to rim hike in a day in Grand Canyon. It was amazing.
That's good.
And I felt like I was just on a roll.
A long way.
But I know when I first ran it, I got to that 12th mile.
Yeah.
And man, I pray pretty hard.
Yeah.
Like, I talk to the big man upstairs every day, but man.
Did he get you through?
Man, he got me through, because that's in my head. I was like, man, God, what's up, man? This is tough right now. Like my legs are numb. I don't know if this was the best idea, but like, please help me get through. But you always utilize that motto: keep hammering, just keep rolling.
Yeah, you just one step at a time. One step at a time. I mean, it's I don't know. I think about there's a good story too. My son, he's my middle child. It's my youngest son, and he wanted to do a 100-miler. So there's in Salt Lake, there's Antelope, Iowa, and there's a 100-miler. And he's like, well, this has this long time to finish. I think it was 32 and a half hours to finish 100 miles, which is a long, I mean, that's giving you some time. And he's like, Dad, he goes, I could, even if I just walked 3 miles an hour, so you can walk about a 20-minute mile, right? So 3 miles an hour, he would finish in less than 32 and a half hours. And he goes, so even if I just walk, I'd finish. I said, well, yeah, I mean, sitting right here, the math works, sitting at the kitchen table drinking coffee. I go, but walking for that, even if you're just walking for 30 hours nonstop, brutal. Yep. So it turns out he did the race. He ran for, I think, either 40 or 60 miles. I can't remember how the split was, and then walked for either 40 or 60, whichever way he did it. But he barely made the 32 and a half hours. He got, I think, 32:08 or 32:11, something like that. But he said it was definitely the hardest thing he's ever done. And the only thing that would keep him going during that time is that attitude. It's just like, the clock's never going to stop. You have to keep taking a step, even when you're in pain. So he took enough steps to where he beat that clock to 100 miles, and he got his 100-mile finish. But definitely said it was the most pain he's ever felt. But it's just that keep hammering attitude. Just got to keep moving.
I couldn't imagine that too, because everyone's got their own little motivation. And just like you said earlier, there's this sense of accomplishment. Yeah. But with people like you and David Goggins, and you got Tom Brady, the Tiger Woods, I feel accomplished, but I want to keep rolling. So I'm sure with your son there, that was a lot of good conversations about like, what were you thinking? What was going through your mind? Because you're like, all right, you did all the calculations while you're sitting at the breakfast table with your coffee. And
right. I ran it myself. So I saw him a few times. So I finished in 22:41. And then I passed him a few times just to give him pep talks, because it's like we did this, I think, kind of 4 little loops. I'm trying to think of how it worked. But anyways, I did see him a few times. And it's just, I mean, what do you say? Got to keep moving. That's all there is to it. Just got to keep hammering. Let's roll. And like, even I've done those races where, even though I've done them, there's always a time in that race like where you want to, how could I get out of this? Because it hurts so bad. It's like, I could say I pulled my hamstring, or I twisted my ankle, and you're always thinking I could come up with all this, but in your heart, you didn't give your best. But people do it all the time, and they come up with these excuses, and then nobody ever really knows the truth. But I always knew that. I remember my wife's here, and I had this goal one time of I wanted to let me think how it worked. I wanted to run an ultra marathon on Saturday. And so I did. That was 32 miles down in Southern Oregon. And then I wanted to run the Eugene Marathon. It was on a Sunday the next day. Right. So we're sitting there at the kitchen table in the morning, and I'd done the ultra the day before, like in 4 hours and 30 minutes, 32 miles, 7,000 feet of gain, I think. And I'm sitting there, my legs are just beat up. My feet are beat up. I felt terrible. I could barely walk. And she goes, you don't have to do this, do you? And I said, yeah. She's like, well, did you post about it? Did you tell people? And does anybody know? And I said, I know that was my goal, to do this and then to do a marathon the next day. I knew. And so that was enough. I couldn't go back on what I had made a decision that I wanted to do that for myself, set these goals. And so I got to the Eugene Marathon start line. I'm like, God, I wonder if I can even run. So there's this little side street there kind of by Hayward Field. And I kind of went just a little bit jogging. I was like, oh God, I guess I could get going. So the race started. My first mile was like in 8 something. It's painful. And I actually got going pretty good and finished in 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Wow.
But from not being able to walk, thinking, how could I get out of this, to doing it. So now I have this in my head, and that is those little battles that you overcome. There's payoff down the road in life. You don't know when, but that makes you who you are. It's like, yeah, I know it's like to be miserable and still overcome. And then it wasn't that bad, and I got through it. But if I wouldn't have done it, then I wouldn't have that building block to build on to get to these next goals. So it's the little battles. Just got to keep winning.
What does rest look like? Because you don't really take rest days. Do you really, you maybe have rest periods, or was that?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I have a hard time being in a good mood unless I've done something. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like it's always kind of weighing over me every day until I get my run in. And then once I get my run in, I'm like, okay, let's have tacos. Let's watch UFC. Let's do whatever. But I got to get like a 13 mile or a 10 mile run or something down. So my body would probably be better off maybe being more rested, but mentally I wouldn't be as good. So now my body's kind of used to it. So I just hammer every day.
What's your next goal? What do you want to do? First off, what do you want to do? Your next goal going into 2022, and then how do you want to get remembered? Your legacy. When people talk about Cameron Hanes after you're dead and gone, what do you want to be remembered for?
Well, let's see. Next goal. I don't know. To me, I like big adventures. I mean, you mentioned the Grand Canyon. I came down and ran with one of my friends down here. We did rim to rim to rim. I love the 100 with my son. I like knowing I gave my best during a certain amount of time just to achieve a goal. When I'm exhausted after a big effort, that feels good. Yeah. So no matter what it is, no matter if it's a race or some big training day, that's what I look forward to. And I don't know what those are, but I just, I know I'm going to have them this year, and I can't wait. Yeah. As far as being remembered, man, I feel like I want to be remembered for somebody who had marginal talent, average person, and achieved and basically tapped all the potential, because as they say, what haunts a man more than anything is untapped potential. What could I have been? So it's when I'm dead, somebody can say he got everything out of his body or his ability that he could have, then I'll be happy, because it's I made the most of my ability. That's, I think, everybody's goal.
I think that's the beauty of sports then too, is this aspect of average people can do extraordinary things.
Yeah.
And that's where, someone that's at Under Armour with you is Tom Brady.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about Tom Brady.
Exactly.
Where this guy, just look at the combine photos.
Oh, terrible.
He is
terrible.
Yikes. He looks like he'd never done a sit up in his life. It looked like he would maybe
slow.
He can maybe do one pull up or something.
Yeah.
But he looked like a very, very average guy.
Did.
And he's been able to do more than probably any NFL quarterback or athlete may ever be able to do.
He might win the MVP this year.
Yep.
Right?
He might break the touchdown record.
I think he's a favorite for MVP.
As of right now, I'm pretty sure he's the favorite.
Yeah.
Now. And a lot of other people have dropped off.
Is he 45?
He's 40. I think he's 45. Or
44 or 45.
I think, yeah. That's another one. The guy's back there. We're gonna need the help again. We need.
Joe always calls on Jamie.
I need a Jamie. 44, but Angelo, Dom, Anthony, you guys are awesome. I get 3 guys.
Oh, sweet.
He's got Jamie.
He's only got Jamie. Yeah. No, so 44 going to be. So you go from, if you had to judge him at the combine, you'd say this guy is going to be an insurance salesman, right? So go from that to 44, might win another MVP, has 7 Super Bowls. It's just, so to me, he's a perfect example of using all the potential he had, all his ability, 100% used it. And there's something beautiful about that to me. I mean, he's taking advantage of his whole human life and spirit.
And then he's invested in his body too. Like, it's not just like mentally and spiritually, financially. So, and then that's something I'll always give credit to LeBron James for. That guy spends, I think, heard about $1.5 million on his body. And then someone like Brady, I've heard right around $1 million or so. Russell Wilson's another guy. Yeah. Odell Beckham Jr. is someone that took advice from Tom Brady. Right. It's like, these guys spend a lot of money, and you're wondering, like, well, why this longevity? How is this happening? It's like, well, Tom Brady can't remember the last time he probably had an almond or something, or a cheat meal or something, but there's an investment there and it's worth it. And there's a lot of people that are like, well, couldn't you use that money for something else? It's like, well, if you have it, you are your business. Like this body is your business, and you're going to spend money on maintenance for your AC units and all these other things. Just think of these athletes like that. There's a reason they're able to play longer.
Well, I remember I heard this, I think it was at the Under Armour 20-year anniversary, but I was back there and somebody's telling a story about Tom Brady, an ex-player, and I can't remember if it was his lineman or anyway, somebody, and they said they saw him in the off season and they were at a party. I can't remember what the party was, but anyway, the point was they're at a party with Tom Brady, and the guy said, "Hey, let me get you a drink." And Tom's like, I'm not drinking, I'm training. And he's like, "Well, what are you training for?" He's like, "Next season." This is right after the season, right? So no drinking, no alcohol, was focused on the next season. Right after the season just ended, probably right after the Super Bowl, I think is what the guy who told me this story said. But it was just never. I mean, never. That switch is never off. It's always like, how can I get better? And it's like you do that for decades, then you get where we're at with Tom Brady right now. But it's all that dedication and sacrifice. You know, who most people would want to have a drink and hang out and relax after a long season, but no, it's never time to relax. Got to keep chasing.
He did partake in that boat parade though at the Super Bowl. Did you see that was? Oh man, that was so funny. I know Barstool came out with a T-shirt of him just kind of just holding on to one of his teammates. And
Definitely he let loose there. I think there was
looks like a 21-year-old celebrating the birthday.
I wonder if I mean, he proved so much to so many people that were thinking it was, Belichick maybe that was made Brady great, or the system, the Patriot way. And so I think it was probably just he proved a lot, not only to everybody else, but maybe to himself even, that he won that Super Bowl with Tampa Bay, no Belichick, no Patriot way. And then it probably was like a huge weight. I'll give him the day. Day to get hammered. It's fine, Tom. But I mean, he's other than that day, he's been pretty dedicated.
And then I think Belichick too, like he's put some respect on his own name too, with like the success that like Mac Jones been incredible, and then what the Patriots are able to do year after year. And by the time this podcast comes out, man, they could still be winning. They could still be on a win streak. Right now, when we talk, they're on a 7-game win streak. They're at the top of the division. They're one of the Super Bowl favorites. And that was a legacy move for Brady to leave and take the Buccaneers from one of the worst teams in the NFC South, along with my Atlanta Falcons. And take them to a Super Bowl. And it's impressive, and I think it comes from this investment in his body.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason he's able to make this move and have this longevity. And for the viewers here too, and all the listeners, what kind of investment specifically do you put in your body? Like maybe financially and everything. What does that look like?
Well, I should be getting, it'd be ideal if I got a massage. I have this really good lady back home. Her name's Erin, and I should be getting a massage every week for sure. But I get massages weekly when I'm on task. But lately I've been doing hot tub, cold tub combo. So I got Rogan helped me get a cold tub at the house. It's miserable. the most, it's like, how if you sit in a hot tub, it's like, oh, this feels pretty good. It never feels good in the cold tub. There's never a moment like, oh man, this feels so good. It's just terrible the whole time. But I've noticed a huge difference in my body just since doing this. And this has only been a couple of months now. Yeah. But yeah, so I've got acupuncture. I eat clean. I, massage. Now the cold tub and lift. As I said, a trainer stretches me out. So it's like, yeah, a lot of what I do is about pushing my body. It's it's these long endurance runs or these long hunts and being at your best and being able to make a good shot of this animal and having those successes. So that's all about what I can do with my body. Yeah. So without my body being able to carry me to those things and helping me succeed in those environments, then nobody really knows who I am. So it's my body gets banged up, and it's like I said, I'm not young, but I feel overall feel great.
Have you had a cheat meal like within the last decade or like what?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because that's one reason because I run so much, I earn those tacos, those chips and salsa. So yeah, I'm not. I run mostly so I can eat what I want.
I love that.
Yeah, but I still, it's not like we're eating fast food all the time.
Yeah, you're not slamming a ho-ho right after.
No, or eating a Twix or a bunch of M&Ms every night. Nothing like that. So I try to. I don't eat or drink a lot of sugar, and just use my calories for good clean food, basically.
And then we'll wrap up with this because I know a lot of us got to go to the convention center and get ready for America Fest. But what does it mean to be here and, partnering with us at Turning Point? You're going to be on stage talking with Michael Chandler and Steve Weatherford and being another one of those athletes out here that's using their platform for good, having real conversations and standing up for America, being a proud American and inspiring a lot of people to, be uncomfortable. Stand for your values, stand for your beliefs. This is why this place is great. And kind of what does it mean for you to be here and what are you looking forward to the most?
It means a lot because what I think about myself is just the average guy with a 9-to-5. And so I feel like if I'm here, I can represent the guys back at work and the people I work with, the people who don't have a voice. Like, I've been blessed with given this opportunity. So I know it's important to them. I know the regular average American, I know how they think because that's who I am. So I'm here trying to be the voice of the hardworking American and share what's important, why we value freedom so much. And if I can, somehow share what other people might be thinking and don't get the opportunity to get it out there, then I feel like I've been successful. And just to be here, it's an honor to be here for sure with true legends. I'm a bow hunter. It's like,
you're a legend, Cameron.
Wow. Thank you. But, I've trained with Chandler. I know what a beast that guy is.
How long do you think he'd last in the octagon?
Me?
With Chandler, yeah.
Oh, God. We had a training day one time in San Diego where I flew down there. I think I was there for Rogan in LA, but then went and trained with Chandler. And he still says it's one of his hardest workouts. It was so hard. But that's just working out. He only does that to fight. It's like, and he is just a machine. I mean, I love watching him fight, and I love his attitude too. So I'm really excited. I saw him in New York right before that was a big card. He fought Justin Gaethje. So I saw him right at the weigh-ins when they went in. Oh, I talked to him after the fight too, but yeah, I haven't seen him since then. So I'm excited.
We were talking about that, how he was like, man, that was a war. We were
really?
Battling.
Oh,
he said,
God.
hey, we both went to an ambulance after.
Yeah.
Like that was one of the greatest fights
It was.
I've ever seen. and
was.
may ever see. And that's what he was saying. Like there was so much respect for each other in that fight. And I hope he gets Conor McGregor next.
That'd be huge. I'd love for him to get a big. Conor brings a payday, right?
Oh yeah,
and the eyeballs.
Yep.
So if you can go and have, like a the Gaethje fight was the first fight of the pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were watching that. It's like it was hard because the rest of the fights had to live up to that fight, right?
It was a fight of the night right off the bat.
Right. So if he can go and put on a show with Conor, plus he'll make a lot of money, which these fighters need to make money because you can't get a tougher job.
Especially after going through Bellator and
I
everything
know.
he's been through.
What a journey.
He deserves it.
What a
people
journey.
love him.
I know. So I'd love to see him get that Conor, the red panty night fight.
That's what he was saying on the podcast too. He's just like, that's what we call it.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to see it. But such a nice guy, greatest guy. So I'm excited to see him over there. Plus all the just big names here. Mm-hmm. How exciting is this?
Yep.
All America Fest. You can't beat the name. You can't beat the cause.
Yeah.
I mean, we're proud to be Americans, and we're gonna be here celebrating it.
That's good. Is there someone you're really looking forward to meeting? One of the speakers or?
Let's see. All of them, basically. Yeah. I mean, I love all of them. I saw Candace she was at the fight too. She's friends with Colby, but she walked right by. I think she went over and talked to Halle Berry when she walked by where I was sitting. I never said anything, but yeah, I mean, there's so many people here I respect and yeah, I feel like I'm not sure why I'm here, but I
can break it down for you. Why you're here.
I'm going to take advantage of it and meet people who I respect and look up to, and I think America relies on to get their message out.
Well, we're glad you're here because I think a lot of people, especially when we're going to go talk on stage with a couple other legends too, is just making people realize that, sports is a great place. Yeah. Athletics is a place that can really bring us together. And I don't think there's any other institution or outlet that can teach you about discipline, that can teach you about respect, that can teach you about how to be a real man, because we need those.
Yep.
And we don't need real men swimming for UPenn and taking out other women swimmers. But that would be another podcast. But
so are you hosting a thing over there?
Yeah, so I'm going to be moderating that with you guys. And that's why we're glad you're here, because you have a great following, a great platform, and a great message that I think a lot of people need to hear, especially when we have America Fest. It's black because we got these country singers, we got political commentators and politicians, and then we got athletes. So we're always talking about here, like, how do we win the culture war? It's like, let's talk about sports. Yeah, let's get into music.
That's right.
Let's do this, because we're not just going to sit idly by and just let the left control the narrative or tell you to stay inside. And they are. The left hates that we got about 10,000 people they
hate freedom.
They don't like it at all. They want to tell you what freedom is. And that's why I'm glad that you're here and you speak openly and freely about, why this is a beautiful place, why we need to get sports back to being, an outlet away from the craziness of politics, the craziness of life. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm definitely glad you're spending the time in this studio and here at America Fest with us. It's going to be a blast. Thanks for joining us.
Great talk. Appreciate it.